Breaking news. Ukraine gets new missiles as allies step in. Netherlands arms Ukraine with missiles and radars. It is Sunday, February 2026. And if you think you know where the front lines stand, well, think again. What we're seeing today isn't just another aid package. It is a fundamental, structural shift in the architecture of this war. The game board is changing. Before we get started, if you are standing with Ukraine, make sure you also subscribe to Defense Reports. It's your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. I'm Alex.
And join me with Arya.
You're listening to the latest Deep Dive by Defense Report for a sharp, no-nonsense breakdown of the latest in global defense news, military technology, and strategic developments. And today we are covering a massive development coming out of The Hague.
A really massive one.
The Netherlands has just kicked off a huge delivery of 100 advanced drone hunting radars and, maybe even more importantly, is localizing the production of the Ruta cruise missile right inside Ukraine.
It's a pivotal moment, really. We're looking at a transition from, the donation economy.
Setting old surplus gear.
Exactly. Sending stuff from the 90s. We're moving to a production economy where Ukraine is building its own self-sustaining, high-tech war machine. One that rivals, frankly, anything in NATO.
And we're not talking about standard off-the-shelf equipment here. We're going to get into the Ruta Block 2, a missile that uses AI to basically make GPS jamming useless.
Which has been the absolute bane of so many Western weapons.
And we're going to talk about the PURL initiative, which is completely rewriting the playbook on how the West finances this war, especially with the shifting politics in the U.S.
And that's really the core of our mission for this deep dive. We want to show you how Europe is stepping up, taking on the heavy lifting for security, and, just as important, how Ukraine is evolving from just a recipient of aid into a truly sophisticated weapons manufacturer in its own right.
So let's get right into the hardware. We have to start with the eyes of the defense.
You can't shoot what you can't see.
Exactly. And seeing has been a huge problem. The Dutch Ministry of Defense and Robin Radar Systems have just signed a deal for 100 drone detection radars.
And the key word here is urgent. This wasn't a normal procurement cycle. This is fast-tracked, and the first units are already on their way.
And what's the specific tactical problem they're solving?
Well, it's terrifying for the troops on the ground. We all know about Russian Shahed drones, but it's the smaller ones, the reconnaissance variants like the Orlan or Zala. They are just notoriously difficult to spot.
It comes down to their radar cross-section, or RCS, right? I was reading that these plastic drones are basically invisible to older tech.
Precisely. Your conventional air defense radar is tuned to find a fighter jet, a big metal object moving fast,
Right.
a small composite drone moving slowly near the treetops. To a traditional radar, that looks just like a bird. It gets lost in the noise floor.
So you have a choice. Either filter out the birds
Yeah.
and miss the drone that's about to hit you, or don't and have a screen just full of false alarms.
A nightmare scenario. So this is where the Robin radar tech, the IRS and MAX systems come in.
Okay, so what's different about them?
They give you 360-degree coverage, but the real differentiator is full 3D tracking. They don't just give you a dot on a map, they give you altitude data instantly.
Which you absolutely need for any kind of kinetic interception. You can't shoot without it.
Correct. But the part of this deal that really shows a change in thinking is survivability. Early in the war, a lot of these radar units were static.
And if you're static in 2026, you're a target.
You're dead. So this new batch includes 51 mobile radars. They were ordered back in August 2024, and they're arriving now. You mount it on a truck, you scan, and you move. Immediately. It makes the Russian targeting cycle so much harder.
There's a detail in the reports, though, that I think is even more important than the hardware. It's this feedback loop between the Ukrainian battlefield and the engineers back in the Netherlands.
Oh, this is the future. It's the ultimate example of battlefield-driven innovation.
So get this. These radars were already in Ukraine being tested. The engineers took real-world data on how Russian Shahed drones actually fly their unique radar signatures.
Not a simulation in a lab.
Not a simulation. They crunched that data, and they just released a software update.
And the impact wasn't small.
No, it was drastic. It more than doubled the detection range. It went from 5 kilometers to 12 kilometers.
Wow.
With no new hardware, just better code.
Just think what that means on the ground. A 12-kilometer warning versus 5. That gives your air defense teams minutes, not seconds, to engage. It saves lives.
It also proves Ukraine isn't just a testing ground. They are actively making Western tech better,
And it goes further. They're not just shipping the boxes. I saw reports about talks just yesterday, January 31st, between Minister Fedorov and the Dutch defense minister.
The localization piece.
Exactly. They are setting up repair and even production facilities for these radars inside Ukraine. The goal is to cut the logistical tail.
So if a radar gets damaged, you're not shipping it back to the Netherlands for weeks.
You're fixing it in Kyiv in a few days. That uptime is critical.
Okay, so we've got the eyes sorted out. Now let's pivot to the fists. Because you can't win a war just playing defense.
You have to strike the archer, not just his arrows. And that brings us to the Ruta Block 2 missile.
This is a massive leap. The Ruta is from Destinus, a company with its HQ in the Netherlands. Block 1 was more of a sophisticated kamikaze drone.
A loitering munition.
Right. The Block 2, though, is a full-fledged cruise missile. And I was looking at the specs. The wow factor is definitely there, a range of over 450 kilometers.
That puts logistics hubs, airfields, command posts deep inside Russia at risk. It pushes their safe zone way back.
And a warhead over 250 kilograms. That's serious. But the design, it struck me as unusual. It's a box-shaped fuselage. Why?
It's about a mix of stealth and logistics. A box shape can help reduce the radar cross-section, but the real practical advantage is that it allows for canister launch.
So the wings fold in.
Right. You can stack them in standard shipping containers on a truck, or maybe even drop them from a cargo plane. It just simplifies everything.
But the real kicker, and this is probably the most critical feature, is the guidance system.
This is the tech edge. Russia is incredibly good at jamming GPS. They create these bubbles where GPS-guided weapons just go blind.
So how does the Ruta Block 2 get around that?
It uses something called HiveMind Combat AI from Shield AI and a navigation system from a Spanish company, UAV Navigation. It's basically terrain relative navigation on steroids.
So explain that. How does it know where it is without a satellite?
It uses its own cameras and sensors to look at the ground below. The AI compares what it sees in real time to a map that's already loaded into its memory.
So it's literally navigating by sight.
By sight and by memory. It says, okay, I see that river bend, I see that forest, I know exactly where I am. You can jam the GPS all you want, it doesn't matter.
That is a strategic game changer. It neutralizes one of Russia's biggest strengths.
It does. And it gives Ukraine a domestic, or at least joint-produced, equivalent to the Storm Shadow. But here's the key difference. Storm Shadows come from the UK and France, and they come with strings attached.
Meaning rules about where they can be fired.
Right. The Ruta is being produced with Ukraine. This means they can build them at scale and use them as they see fit without asking for permission to strike deep inside Russia.
That operational sovereignty is vital.
It's everything.
Speaking of scale, that leads us right into the broader idea here. The European drone wall.
This is the Build with Ukraine concept made real. We are past donations and into co-production. The Netherlands has put 800 million euros aside in 2025 just for this drone line project.
And the numbers justify it. Reports say these drone units are taking out every fourth target on the front line. That efficiency is just staggering.
It is. And you have to look at the German model here, too, to get the scale. There's a joint venture, Quantum Frontline Industries. They are building a fully automated drone factory.
In Germany.
In Germany. And when we say automated, we mean robots building robots. High-throughput manufacturing. And 100% of the output, the Zoom and Linza drones, go straight to Ukraine.
It's the perfect synergy. German industrial automation plus Ukrainian combat design.
The best of both worlds. And while we're on high-tech, we should quickly mention the VERA-NG radar.
The passive ones. This tech is fascinating.
It is. Most radars shout. They send out a blast of energy and listen for the echo. But that shouting also tells the enemy exactly where you are.
Right. Anti-radiation missiles just ride that beam right back to you.
Exactly. But the VERA-NG, it's passive. It emits nothing. It just listens for the enemy's own electronic noise, their radios, their radars. It finds them by their own emissions.
So to an anti-radiation missile, it's invisible.
A ghost.
Okay, so we have the tech, we have the manufacturing.
Yeah.
But none of this happens without the money and the political will. And we have to address the elephant in the room, the United States.
You have to be realistic. Under the Trump administration, we saw aid get suspended in mid-2025. It's back on, but the rules have changed. Washington is saying, we'll sell you the weapons, but the American taxpayer isn't footing the bill.
Which brings us to PURL, the Prioritized Ukraine Requirements List. How does that work?
It's a clever workaround. Since the U.S. won't pay, NATO allies led by the Netherlands, Denmark, Norway are pooling their cash. They create a fund to buy weapons directly from U.S. defense contractors for Ukraine.
So it's European money, American hardware for Ukrainian defense.
Exactly. It keeps the supply chain open, bypassing the political gridlock in D.C. And the Netherlands just pledged another 250 million euros to PRL for PAX-3 Patriot missiles and F-16 ammo.
It really feels like the Dutch are committing for the long haul. I saw the budget numbers from the new coalition government.
They are not messing around. They've pledged 3 billion euros a year from 2027 to 2029. And because the war is so intense, they just threw in an extra 700 million for the first quarter of this year.
For a country that size, that is a huge commitment. It shows Europe now sees Ukraine's security as their own.
The word they used was inseparable, and the Netherlands is moving toward a 3.5% GDP defense spending target. That's way above the NATO 2% minimum. It's a wartime mindset.
And we can't talk about Dutch aid without the F-16s.
They delivered their jets by mid-2025. But giving someone a jet is the easy part.
Keeping it flying is the hard part. The maintenance.
It wins wars. There's a new $235 million contract with Sabina Engineering in Belgium just to keep Ukraine's F-16s flying through 2029.
And the training hubs in Romania are part of that.
Yes, but what's really interesting is the tactical integration. There's now a formal data exchange agreement. Dutch and Ukrainian teams are sharing intel to figure out how to best use these jets.
So it's not just, here's the manual, good luck.
No, it's let's figure this out together. It's doctrine sharing. It shows a level of trust and integration we just didn't see at the start of the war.
The whole ecosystem is maturing.
Yeah.
So to summarize, a massive shift is happening right now. Today, the Netherlands and Europe are building a drone wall. They're funding the war effort directly through PURL, and Ukraine is now co-producing high-tech, AI-driven missiles like the Ruda.
It's the industrialization of the war effort, a sustainable long-term model that makes Ukraine less vulnerable to political winds in any one country.
You know, we often talk about Western aid keeping Ukraine in the fight. But when I look at all this, software from the battlefield doubling radar ranges, Ukrainian tactics automating German factories, I have to ask, is it possible the flow of knowledge has reversed? Is Ukraine now the one teaching NATO how to fight a modern war?
That's the question, isn't it? When you look at the pace of innovation, the student may have become the master. Ukraine is fighting the war of the future today.
Something to think about. You've been listening to Defense Report by Alex Anaria, where we analyze the latest in military strategy, global defense, and advanced weaponry. If you found this deep dive valuable, don't forget to subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. We'll catch you next time.